guys, this is the Fat Panda, and it is too damn hot to be recording without the AC on. But if it was, you wouldn't be able to hear me anyway, so I'm going to be sweating bullets and bringing you the Week 7 power rankings for the WPF B-League. There was no video last week because after Week 6, unfortunately, only about 4 battles had taken place, so I didn't think there was quite enough to actually justify making a video. That gets made up for this week because we have a double dose. Every coach has 2 matches to talk about. I won't go too depth into everything, but we get to talk about a heck of a lot here. A few coaches rose, a few coaches dropped. We had one coach only manage to go 2-0 over 2 weeks. It was split 1-1 or with 1-0-2 elsewhere, but a very even week for all the coaches. We had all of our undefeated teams finally managed to get knocked off, which was super exciting to see. I'd always been curious to see who it was that was going to take them out. So I've got a few things to talk about. May as well hop right into the number 1 spot, which is the Cherrygrove Charizards, which did get dethroned from their undefeated streak this past couple weeks, but still easily the top team. He didn't, one bad match. No coach is generally... No one ever goes through a league undefeated, despite I've seen one coach manage to go undefeated and win a finals. I would never expect to see that. Something always happens, and that happened in Week 7 of the Cherrygrove Charizards, where he finally got beat, but no overreactions, no crazy team changes, no nothing like that, so he's still easily my number 1. Week 6 shows why I think he is the number 1. He was up against the Beverly Hills Bibarel, a coach a little bit lower on the rankings, so you'd think the number 1 would be able to mop him up, and he certainly did. He brought a Haze Toxic Spikes Toxapex, which is fairly standard, but it managed to completely deny any sort of momentum on the opposing team. Nothing could break it, and it just managed to basically single-handedly wear down the opposing team for the rest of his squad to clean up. It was a very, very convincing victory, and exactly what I would expect to see out of him. Week 7, up against the Sacramento Kingler, another fairly strong team in the league. So when these top teams go against each other, it's always a treat to see how they're going to deal with each other. The Cherrygrove Charizards, with that scissor up against a Magnezone, did manage to get trapped. The Sacramento offered up a sacrificial Mandibuzz to the scissor and brought in Magnezone for free, HP Fire, no more scissor. After something like that happened, he had rocks up on his side. He couldn't get him defogged or rapid spinned away, and he just kind of got worn out and worn down. Managed to pick up his first loss. Still very good team. Easily number 1 in my mind. At the number 2 spot, we have up and coming the Miami Deinos. Coach that did also go 1-1 this past couple weeks, but have a incredibly scary roster, and thank God got rid of their tier 5s for some new blood, because those tier 5s never been brought. And even though something like Shedinja you'd expect to have to prep for it every week, I doubt really anyone ever does, because it's prep for by accident all the time regardless. So getting some fresh blood in there with a couple good pickups. Paulo Swan was let go by another coach, and Tauros, while not maybe the most sexy tier 5 pick, of course, has 110 speed, has good attack, has sheer force, is basically going to offer more than Charizard would in any situation. So I really like these changes. Week 6, up against the Sacramento Kingler, and he managed to get a Celesteela set up, Supersonic Sky Strike on the Vaporeon, which lived with a whole 1%, and denied a Celesteela from literally going 6-0. But after that, Superior cleaned up pretty easily with Leaf Storm and coverage moves, and wasn't a heck of a lot to talk about there. Week 7, Philadelphia Pangoros came in hot with rain. Had just come off a win of their own in Week 6, going into Week 7, and took him down. Kabutops in the rain this season has proven to be pretty scary, and was no exception here. He played a little odd. I think he had a Scarf Superior, and instead of opting to Leaf Storm or something into the Kabutops, which technically is understandable because there was a Sap Sipper Goodrow we knew was Sap Sipper in the back, but he could have still managed. He went for a glare instead. Kabutops stayed in, probably thinking he was going to outspeed simply because the rain was up and wasn't thinking maybe about a scarf or anything. So he could have actually stopped the Kabutops there, but he instead paralyzed it and then had to sack a couple Mons to Aqua Jets to save the Superior, and it was all kind of downhill from there. So one great match, one unfortunate loss, a couple of fantastic trades I think really kind of bring him up in the rankings. Number 2, like I said, I've said basically every week, like these number 2 with like number 5 is basically interchangeable. It's just whatever flavor of the week I'm really feeling, and this week it happens to be the Miami Deinos. At number 3, we have dropping down the Wyong Washing Machines, who have also collected their first loss. That was in week 6 to the Gotham Darkrai. He got completely messed up by the most insane Jirachi set I'm sure most of us have ever seen. Jirachi, this thing was completely impossible to prep for the set that he brought. It was, let me think if I get this right. It had Psychic. Okay, Jirachis can run Psychic. They're special. That's fine. It had Iron Defense. Okay, we're getting a little weird, but Iron Defense, Calm Mind, that's a set that can be run. Rest, mono attacking move. Psychic would be a weird one, but let's keep going. Charge Beam instead of Calm Mind. So we've got a way to hit the dark types, and we've got a way to boost our attack. Special defense is going to suffer, but he wasn't really worried about that looking at the team that Wyong has. I wouldn't have been either. There's really no special type there that will ever be able to touch Jirachi in any real fashion. And then the last move, you think, okay, well, he must need recovery, right? So probably Wish or Rest. Those would make sense. No, why would he do that? He decided to run Drain Punch, which seems really odd on a special set, but you see that Chansey, or that Blissey, right there in the Week 7 MVP slot. That's because that Blissey does not take Drain Punch as well. The recovery he got back from what I assume is a fairly uninvested Drain Punch actually was about the recovery he would get from something like a Wish. So he was getting full heals whenever this Blissey would come in and try to tank the hits that were getting shown out. And it was just something that the Wyong Washing Machines really didn't have any answer for built into their team that week. It took him a little while to recover. I believe he even lost our Manatan to it, which was pretty much the primary encounter he would have had there with Flare Blitz and the like. But he did get the Jirachi worn down, and it was unfortunately too late, and the rest of his team was just too broken to take on the rest of the Gotham Darkrai's team. I believe he ended up getting swept by like a Gyarados Mega, I believe. Just Dragon-danced up and kind of finished the rest. Week 7, very good recovery up against the Canine Tiger. He basically walled the entire team the Canine Tiger brought with, once again, that Blissey set. And wishes and heals and seismic tosses, and he managed to bounce around whenever something that came in that was remotely threatening, swap back to Blissey. Blissey eats the hits and just kind of moves on with its life. So he had a pretty dang comfortable win there. Gets him some power back after the unfortunate loss to the Gotham Darkrai. At number 4, we have the Sacramento Kingler. At 4-3 now, moving up in the rankings. Had a fantastic win against the Cherrygrove Charizards. Anyone who managed to beat that, I didn't care who it was going to be moving up a few slots at the very least. And this guy definitely deserves it. Has a really fun team. I think at this point the team is gelling together a lot better. He is the one, I believe, who had the Mega Audino plus 3 tier 1s before. Dropped the Latios, picked up a better Mega. And I think the team is overall gelled a lot better since he lost one match due to a very unfortunate crit. A couple matches were close matches against strong competitors. And I think he's got a lot to prove. And that match against the Cherrygrove Charizard just shows how driven he is. He came to play. He got the scissor trapped. He just messed him up. It was very good to watch. He did unfortunately lose to Miami, as I mentioned before. He brought his Mimikyu, but it got busted, and then he didn't really have any answer to the Superior, so he got kind of mopped up by that. But the team is strong. One of the best wins I've seen of the season against Cherrygrove Charizards. Very good team right now, performing well. At number 5, rising up in the rankings, we have the Gotham Darkrai. Got the other team with a win against a undefeated team in the Wyong washing machines. They brought that insane Jirachi set, which just, that right there is someone who went deep and dove as far as they could into the prep because they knew they needed this win. It was an out of conference match, so it didn't really help a ton for tiebreakers or anything, but it certainly showed and sent a message that he knows exactly what he is doing with his team. He managed to also, I believe, he did lose though, I believe, week 6. It was against the Motherland Mawiles. He got, unfortunately, hacked down that match a couple times. I think he had the win pretty well wrapped up, but an agility Hoopa Unbound, I think, flinched Jirachi a couple times when it was just like the 1v1 at the very end. And I'm pretty sure it had like U-turn or something to just one-shot the Hoopa. So he got blown up at the very end by hacks, but the match itself was fairly good. His Zapdos actually got trapped by a, Spirit Shackle, Toxic, Rest, Decidueye. Those are another 3. We've seen some really, really insane preps this past couple weeks, and I'm loving it. We're seeing things that I would never think about, No one looks at Decidueye and thinks that thing is a trapper by any means, but it came this week, it trapped his Zapdos, and just kind of let loose at that point. One little roster change, dropping Z from Zapdos, moving it over to the Jirachi. I think that's dang good of an idea. The Zapdos is one of those, it's kind of an unfortunate Z captain where, it's stab, electric, thunderbolt nuke, or thunder nuke if you really want to go for it. That's certainly good, but other than that, it doesn't really have any good coverage Zs or anything. It's got Z Heat Wave, but no Hurricane, nothing else really. Not even I don't think Shadow Ball or whatnot. You can't Z a hidden power. I'm sure there's something funky you could do with status moves in Z, but you can say the same thing about Jirachi. It may not have the ability to use Z Celebrate or Z Hold Hands or whichever it has in this league, but it's got a heck of a lot more attacking options for Z. It's got, I'm sure, just as many status options for Z, so overall, I'm thinking it's a pretty darn good trade. I'm certainly not going to say anything bad about it. At number 6, we've got the Philadelphia Pangoros, the one team in the league over the past 2 weeks to go 2-0. Both matches were basically the exact same blueprint, though. Both matches, he brought rain. He brought Kabutops. Kabutops, I believe in both matches, set up a Swords Dance in the rain, and then it just went to Pound Town. It broke the opposing team in half, and then someone else just kind of cleaned up the mess after that. He won against the Happy Valley Hariyamas. Kabutops broke, and I believe Goodra finished the match with some sludge waves against the Clefable that lived. And then against Miami, same deal. Kabutops broke the team. Eventually Superior was the only one left, and it couldn't touch the Goodra yet again because it was Sap Sipper. And Scarf Superior is not going to break that thing at any point. So very, very good matches. Both matches went basically the same, but his team can certainly afford to run similar strategies a lot of weeks because they are very, very strong strategies. With the rain, with the Tapu Lucha, there's just far too much to walk out for, and this team is definitely rising in the ranks. At number 7, we have the Michigan Diamond Storm dropping a little bit this week, unfortunately. It's just one of those things where these top few slots are just so close together that when one team shines a little higher, either by beating another really good team or having a little bit of a streak like Philadelphia does, someone has to pay the price for that. And this time I think it was the Michigan Diamond Storm. Went 1-1 over the past 2 weeks, like most coaches did. Had a very tough loss to the AK team, unfortunately, in week 6. He was up against the infamous Shell Smash Minior and sadly brought 0 answers for it. It came in on his Mega Absol, set up a Shell Smash, Absol wasn't able to KO, and just cleaned up all 6 mons. He was playing really well up to that point, But basically, as soon as AK realized he could bring in Minior on something that couldn't kill it, the game was over. It just looked like a loss in prep because he has so many things that should be able to tank or take Minior on 1v1 to an extent, especially with enough chip. And none of them really came. So he just got completely blown apart. But he managed to kind of make up for it week 7 against the Seattle Celebi. He brought a almost fully Spadef Comfey that managed to tank a couple hits, get a couple KOs, and when it came down to it against, when it was just basically a 1v1 of Comfey against Blacephalon, he managed to force the Blacephalon that was choice to go for Mind Blown when needing 2 KOs, as opposed to its other coverage moves like Flamethrowers or Shadow Ball. Because of that, since it needed 2 KOs, it had to unfortunately KO itself, which, like Explosion does, causes the coach using it to lose. If it wasn't fully Spadef, Comfey, if it had been a little bit more offensive like you often see, that simply wouldn't have been possible, and the Blacephalon could have just blown right through. So very, very fun to watch. I think it was a pretty good match, and a little bit more showing and prep there for him than there was in the week before. At number 8, we have the Motherland Mawiles with a 1-1 record of the past 2 weeks. Again, just like basically everybody else. Week 6 got tossed around by the Seattle Celebis. As in near the beginning of the season, my highest concern with this team was simply I think it can get way too worn down when it's up against a team that is just quite not able to break at the moment. And that's what happened. He brought Sand, he brought a Leech Seed Whimsicott, and this team just couldn't really break through it fast enough. It got worn down, and a couple times Excadrill would come in, take a couple KOs, the Sand would leave, and he'd get the Sand back up and bring in Excadrill safely again after sacking something, and that pattern just repeated itself until the Motherland Mawiles just had nothing left, and they did fall. But week 7, they did get a win against the Gotham Darkrai. He brought that crazy Decidueye trapping set for the Zapdos, worked perfectly. Zapdos didn't stand a chance, couldn't KO it, couldn't escape because it didn't have Volt Switch or U-turn, and Decidueye got a very pretty kill there. And there was not much else there. I mean, he got the Agility Hoop Unbound, it flinched a couple things, and that was enough to clean. So, you can't complain when the hacks come your way, and definitely not going to complain when it actually ends up eking you out of victory. So another good match for him. At number 9, we have AK Team, who went 1-1 as well. Like I said before, they did get that win against the Michigan Diamond Storm where he smashed with the Minior, and the Minior just killed 6 things. It's done that 2 or 3 times now this season where an opposing coach just doesn't prep for it, and it comes in and KOs everything, which is mind-blowing to me because since he does this, he at least has it, I think, every week. Maybe there was like 1 week where it didn't come. You'd think people would start prepping for it, incomplete, but that's a couple times where no one has, so he certainly is reaping the benefits when it doesn't. But when someone does, as in his match against the Patchum Patchum, he gets punished for all his setup opportunities. Against Patchum Patchum, every time he tried to set up, unfortunately, he got punished for it, either by getting hit by something super effective or just getting blown down repeatedly with his setup mons. And I'm talking like he had 3 or 4 in that match, and every time they tried to set up, it just got knocked the heck out. So he's still doing what he's doing, and he's rocking a 3-4 record, certainly in the fight for the playoffs here. When the setups go his way, he blows his opponent out. When they don't go his way, he does get blown out. So we'll kind of see how that coin flipping goes as the season goes on. At number 10, we have the Seattle Celebi, my highest ranked 2-5 team because they are on a heck of an upswing recently. Did lose in week 6 to the Michigan Diamond Storm. He went for the Mind Blown over the Flamethrower with the Blacephalon, as I mentioned before. I don't believe Flamethrower could KO that Comfey in 1, but it was at like 40% or something. And as far as we are aware, it had no way to actually KO the Blacephalon, who was also at like 40% back. So he did kind of choose to lose the match, unfortunately. If he'd gone for Flamethrower, outside of some weird crit there, he would have just absolutely won the match because the boost would have then KO'd the next thing, and he would have squeaked out with the Blacephalon sweep. And that's Seattle's biggest problem. That is now 2 matches this season where he's had what is, as far as I can tell, a 100% victory, and he's just kind of thrown it away by picking something else. Earlier in the season against the Canine Tiger, he had a definite 100% victory, and then this week, I'm pretty sure he had guaranteed himself a victory. So he, while at 2-5, it doesn't look likely for the playoffs, but he's playing really well, and he could, with just a little bit better decision making at the end of matches, just slow down, analyze everything, he could easily be 4-3 and really in the thick of it. But he has played well enough. 7-5 record is going to be iffy to make the playoffs, I'm thinking. But if he just goes on, keeps playing as well as it looks like he has been, I think there's a dangerous coach that might sneak into the playoffs. And we've seen low records go far deep into the playoffs before. And I think he is probably one of our best chances to get there in the end. He just has been playing really well. He wore down Mawiles' team, which is exactly what I said you should do it. And he was just one mistake away from taking a 2-0 series in the past 2 weeks. At number 11, I have the Happy Valley Hariyamas. Week 6 did lose to the Philadelphia Pangoros. That SD Kabutops just completely broke the team he brought, and everything else got cleaned up by the Sludge Wave Gudra that finished off the Fable, and then a couple other things after that. But Kabutops was definitely the real star of the show that took him down that time. Week 7, he did have a very nice win against the Auckland Articunos. He brought the standard Curse Lax. I believe this one was Curse Recycle with 2 moves. And Auckland just had absolutely nothing for it. He didn't have Taunt. He didn't have any Haze or Whirlwind. And it was over like that. Basically, the minute Snorlax came in safely, the match was over. And I think it was a full 6-0 because I think Snorlax did come in at one point safe and just completely set up and overwhelm him. So always nice to watch those, and especially when you notice your opponent doesn't have any sort of way to deal with it. It's nice when you can just not mess around and do a last month setup thing. You can just go straight to it and say, you know what, it's time to end this game, which is what he did, and those are really fun to watch. At number 12, we have the Auckland Articunos. They went 1-1. They did lose, as I just mentioned, to the Happy Valley Hariyamas with that Snorlax set. He's got, honestly, on his team, really not a lot of ways to deal with something like that. But I'm pretty sure on there I see Taunt, I see some phasing, not a lot. I think he also managed to burn it, which may or may not have been a problem depending on what ability that Snorlax had. I think the Snorlax was probably Gluttony, simply because it was a berry recycle set. But I'm not 100% sure. I don't remember to watch the video again. But if it wasn't an immunity, that whenever he did burn it, really kind of screwed him, because Toxicking it just shuts that kind of Snorlax set down. So just a little bit of misprep or misplay, one way or the other. Just, nothing he could do against the Snorlax once he really got going. In his win, in Week 7, he went against the Puget Sound Swamperts. He had a pretty good Smurgle lead, just Rocks, Spore, and then Seismic Toss till it died. He spored Heracross, the Heracross Mega that the opponent had, which is probably the single best target he could have gotten. That really just let his Mamoswine loose, and the Mamoswine did so much damage. When he tried to bring the Heracross in to stop it, it took too much damage before even having a chance to wake up, so there was nothing it could do about it, and Mamoswine really went to town there. It was very good. He did overwhelm some unusual sets. I saw Power Up Punch Azumarill, which is certainly unorthodox, and Defog Dragonite, which once again is definitely unorthodox because that has to come in before the hazards go up. Otherwise, it loses essentially what is its best advantage in multi-scale. So he did what he had to do: set up the hazards, took out one threat with Spore, and then just kind of used that momentum to roll through the rest of the team. I think in a team that's so dependent on its lead like that, though, something instead of like Seismic Toss, like maybe like Final Gambit or Nuzzle, something like that where you're not going to KO anyway, so you may as well really fuck up maybe a second Mon after sporing. Really could have gone a long way, but it certainly didn't need it, and managed to get the victory regardless. At number 13, we have the Beverly Hills Bibarel at 2-5. They managed to lose to the Cherrygrove Charizards, as I mentioned before. His team that he brought just had no way to deal with Toxapex with Haze and T-Spikes, and he got completely worn down, and there was really nothing he could do at that point. But much better news, he did take out the Puget Sound Swamperts. I believe actually that was the Week 6 match. The Week 7 match was the Cherrygrove. But against the Puget Sound Swamperts, he looked icy early. I thought he was chucking the match pretty quick because like turn 2 or 3, he basically threw his Weavile away for nothing against E-Speed Dragonite. But he managed to bring it back. He had a good, I think it was an offensive Shaman with Seed Flare and Hidden Power Ice and Earth Power and maybe a heal or something. I don't remember what the last move was. As well as the Flame Charge Victini. And the one thing that both of those managed to do was just beat the crap out of the Marowak Alola that Puget Sound brought as basically the best check to both of them. So the moment that thing fell, these two really had free reign and got, I believe, 4 KOs between the two of them. So it was a heck of a good match for him. He really basically knew what he had to do as soon as he threw that Weavile away. He got back in it with Shaman, and then Victini managed to clean it up after that. It was a pretty good match to watch there. At number 14, we have the Canine Tiger at 3-4. Week 6, was it Week 6? Yes, Week 6, they lost to the Wyong Washing Machines. He had absolutely no way to deal with Blissey. Nothing he had, not even like Magnastorm Heatran could take it out. If he had Taunt or something on that Heatran, oh boy, that Blissey would have gone down like a sack of potatoes. But he was just one step shy on basically all the things he had. Malamar was there, and it was like a superpower, I think even Taunt set. I believe it did have Taunt. But as the best thing to take out the Blissey, he unfortunately, it was the first thing he sacrificed, I believe, where he brought it in, or somehow, I don't remember how exactly it happened, but it ended up taking a Moonblast from Rabombi, which while it lived with its Focus Sash, at 1 health and with rocks on the field, it had to be used to sacrifice fodder later because he couldn't get rid of those rocks. And even at 1 health, it wasn't probably going to be taking out that Blissey either, unless, Wyong really screwed up and let it get some boosts up. So it's just some unfortunate misplays that week. But he did get a very, very solid win against the Patchum Patchum. It wasn't nothing like no insane sets or anything, but he just brought a nice solid team, and it felt like he knew exactly what Patchum was going to do every single turn. It's like he could see on the screen what moves Patchum had clicked, because every time he picked exactly what he needed to, and it just resulted in a complete and utter beatdown, where he won 6-0, and it didn't look like he had to even try at all. So that was a very good match to see after the disappointing loss to the Wyong Washing Machines. He does make a couple trades here. He drops Gardevoir, and thank God he drops Victory Bell finally for Chansey, which is my personal favorite, and then Doublade as well for a nice ghost type on the squad. I don't really know if what he needed was more fat. He's already got a really fat team. He's got Tapu Fini, he's got Heatran, which can be very bulky. He's got Gliscor, which can be very bulky. Crobat can be very bulky. Malamar kind of is, simply because superpowered, weird boosts like that, but I wouldn't count it too much. I like the Chansey pickup or something, certainly very good. Chansey Fini is a very, very, very fat combo. I don't think the Doublade pickup was that particularly good, but I'd have to look in his division. Maybe, if his division has something like Mega Metacham or, something that it just absolutely denies. That's not terrible to have for 1, maybe 2 matches, depending on if he manages to get to playoffs and face an opponent or whatever. I'm sure there's probably a good reason he picked it. It seems obvious that it pairs very well with Chansey, but the problem is they're both absolutely wrecked by knockoff, and he already had the perfect Chansey partner as far as I'm aware in Tapu Fini. at least as far as what was available. So, not so sure about the Doublade pickup, but the Chansey itself certainly looks pretty good. I'm never going to complain when I see a Chansey on someone's squad. At number 15, we have the Patchum Patchum, who finally, thank God, got their first win of this season, and it was a good win too. It was against against AK's team, and AK always likes to set up, and he just punished this man for setting up every single time. Zygarde tried to set a sub up against a Sylveon, Hyper Voice death. Chandelure tried to set up a Calm Mind against Zeraora, knockoff, gone. It was very wonderful. The moment AK tried to say, okay, let's slow this match down, he brought in Ferrothorn. Cobalion came on, set a sword stance up, and just swept the rest of the team. It was a very nice victory to watch. It really felt like, it feels like he is getting a lot better, but on the other side, there is, against his loss in Week 6 to the Canine Tigers, which was not so pretty, where he just got knocked around. It felt like, it felt like he was making the obvious plays, and Canine Tiger were punishing those plays every time. But I'm liking the upsides I've been seeing these past few weeks, and one bad victory or one bad loss happens to us all. But the positives I've seen in the other 3 or 4 weeks recently, I'm really liking where he's going. I'm expecting some more victories as the season winds down here. At number 16, we have the Puget Sound Swamperts, also at 1-6. Unfortunately, the only team not to rack up a win the past couple weeks. Losses to the Auckland Articuno, where he managed to unfortunately get his hair across the board, and then he just had no comeback for Mamoswine at that point. There were probably just about any other mon on his team should have been Sport instead, but his Heracross was the one he chose, so that just kind of led to a downfall at that point. Against the Beverly Hills Bibarel, he went and he had his Marowak, but it got just, worn down eventually, didn't have any sort of recovery or anything, so the Shaman and the Victini really kind of took him to town as soon as it was low enough. It's been a bad few weeks for Puget Sound after they won Week 1. It does kind of feel like they're in a tailspin. The team itself, it feels kind of like the cast-offs of every tier to an extent, but there's some fun things to watch out for. I really wish I'd see Stakataka more, to be honest. I think Stakataka is one of those mons that, even if you prep for it, it can literally, the moment it gets a free turn, it can swing the game completely around in your favor. Especially with Trick Room, he's got some really good Trick Room mons on that team for a strategy I haven't seen yet, as far as I'm aware, or at least not really. He's got Stakataka, obvious Trick Room, especially because it uses it. Marowak loves Trick Room. Heracross Mega, it's actually fairly good in Trick Room. It's fast-ish, like 75 or 85 or so. No, 85 to 75 is when a Mega Evolves. So yeah, 75 speed is, middling, but slow if you don't invest it. Zumero may not be the obvious Trick Room mon, but instead of, running a Billy Drum set, you could run a Bandit set, and with huge power, it dishes out a ton of damage. So I think there's some strategies he hasn't tried yet. Hopefully he gets around to working with some stuff like that or something to eke out a few victories as the season winds out here in the last 5 weeks. Here we've got the entire ranking for how the past couple weeks have gone. A lot of little shakeups here. It's just kind of, at this point, you've got everyone in the tiers, and it's kind of whoever I'm really feeling each week or so, because for the most part, people aren't breaking out of their tiers, and not necessarily because I don't want them to break out, but simply because, no one's going on a huge streak of wins or losing a ton of matches for the most part. So everyone's just kind of staying even. Trades can change the team a little bit, move it up or down, but overall you can kind of see where everyone is sitting at this point. The league is basically split into like the top 9, which are the playoff teams, and then the rest are there's a couple there that are really struggling and couldn't make it if they went on an absolute tear right now. But the top 9 are really kind of the real playoff hopefuls at this point. At number 10, Seattle Celebi, I'd like to see them make a strong push at the end. You could see a team like Hariyamas or Auckland or even the Canine Tiger still have the records to end up at like 8-4 or something. So, you could see something interesting there. MVP tracker, yeah, Minior is back on top after a couple weeks off. A 6-0 will certainly do that for you. Cherrygrove Charizards dropped to only the number 2 and 3 slots instead of the number 1 and 2. But they didn't really make any progress because he did lose a match this week. So we'll see if he comes back with a vengeance or not, and hopefully manages to get a, I want to see some insane numbers. And right now, I thought it was going to be that scissor. I thought that scissor was going to be just rising, but he did have a loss. So now, maybe this Minior can hold on to the spot a few weeks. I'd like to see that. It certainly seems to get some huge victories. It basically gets 0 KOs or it gets 6. So I'd like to see maybe if it can do some more work, although maybe I shouldn't be encouraging AK because he does set up so much. But it's certainly enjoyable to watch, and the matches end fast, so one way or the other. That's really all I got for you guys this week. 2 weeks of stuff to go for this video, and hopefully I can get back to just 1 week of video going on now. Next week should be a larger one because the trade deadline is at the end of week 8, so I can go and kind of run over everyone's final team and see where everyone is sitting at that point, because there won't be any changes to squads after week 8. And maybe do a little mid-season kind of larger video. Maybe not as long as my preseason video, but we'll see. And at this point, I'm basically just rambling anyway, so I'm going to wrap up this video, turn my goddamn AC back on, and get back to watching and seeing what you guys do next week. This is the Fed Panda, and that's all I've got for you.